Hey folks, welcome to the View podcast. This week's edition, episode 4 of the podcast. John by Lockie again this week. Lockie, how's things, mate? How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been quite a quiet week. Usually, it's kind of that gap between end of season and pre-season now for work. So I'm just kind of waiting for that all to kick in so I can get going. So I've just been doing YouTube, mate. Just been watching the Euros as well. It's been all right. Not too bad.
How are you feeling about the Euros?
I mean, the tournament's great fun. I'm having great fun watching it. But I suppose for England, it's probably the most depressing side of it, isn't it? To be honest, the played style and the lack of freedom and all that. It's not fun. But I'm enjoying the tournament. I think it's great. There's a lot of goals in there. Spain look great for me. I think the way they play is so free, and wingers, you're quick, run at them. Midfield, control it, give it them. It's just simple football things, isn't it? But yeah, Euros is the Euros, mate. I'm used to this. Don't worry, I'm used to this. Never quite reaching expectations.
I had an Irish commentator talk about Williams yesterday for Spain, who just fantastic footballer. But he talked about the fact that he is a throwback, where most wingers look to come inside all the time. He likes to get outside as well, and he likes to get crosses like kind of a traditional winger, which confuses fullbacks now because they're all programmed to expect the winger to be inverted and cut inside and shoot. But he doesn't. He was incredible yesterday. The only surprise yesterday was that it was only 1-0, but also you should be surprised because it's Italy and they're notorious for being good defence.
Yeah. No, good game. That I enjoyed it. Italy are speaking to Andrea. Obviously, we've been having a bit of stuff in the chat about Italy and England. So yeah, both are doing not great. It seems. You know what I mean? Both are struggling a bit. But Spain it's fresh. They just look fresh, young. They are young, but they look it. You know what I mean? England look like a bunch of old men playing out there, but Spain look great. Yeah, Williams and Yamal on the other side, 16 years old. Yeah, crazy, innit? That talent is ridiculous. Yeah, I'm loving it.
There was it's an interesting point about the English stuff. I am fully aware I'm Irish and I have zero skin in the game when it comes to England, but I do try to look at football objectively, so I won't be the stereotypical Irishman. But I have watched them, and we've talked a bit about it before we came on. But it's I think the thing with Spain is they're young, but they're brave. They've got a coach who's expressive and lets them play, where England look overcoached, too much restriction on players' movement, what they can do. We talked about this as well. I've seen people criticize Trent and Kane and everybody else, and I just look at it and go, I don't really think it's their problem. I think it's just that they're just not allowed to play in an expansive way. And if you gave that team to a Bielsa, Jesus, there's some talent in that side. Like, I just really do think... I'm not always quick to blame a manager. I usually try not to blame a manager because I haven't been a manager. I try to avoid that like the plague.
Yeah.
But I think you look at it and you kind of go, it's a very conservative approach to this. And I think if you just let them off the leash and let them play, you'd have Foden, Saka, Bellingham just absolutely tearing teams apart and Kane get a bag of goals. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. It's like you said, it is tough. I'm trying to look at why Southgate doing this. What is his thoughts behind it? I think that a lot of it is, having played at that level, probably being overcoached, playing for England, maybe he thinks he can adapt it himself to make England better and all that. But I just think there's got to be, like with Spain and some other sides as well, there's got to be an air of freedom. I remember you did an interview with Skubala, and I watched an interview when he joined Leeds originally, talking about how he plays football, and he has 3 stages, defensive stages. This is how you'll play. Do what I say. The midfield, there is some freedom, but there's also parts you do. The front third, he says, I'm not going to tell you how to take a man on or how to attack. You're better than me. Do that. And I think that approach works perfectly in international football as well, because you don't have these players. You can't coach them. They are coached every week by their club. It's hard to overcoach them. They'll just get confused. And you look at the way England played. A lot of them just stood there. They kind of didn't understand what am I meant to do. Give them a solid defensive shape. I don't mind that. Good. Is that pressing, counter pressing, whatever we do there? Make sure that's a solid shape. But when we have it, and when we have the ball in the kind of middle third, final third, surely then players are good enough to, by themselves, with maybe a little bit of guidance, certain movements you should make in the final third, to just play. I look at Carlo Ancelotti's Real Madrid, defensive shape, midfield shape, front 3-4, play. Score goals, do it. Same for Spain, same for, Skubala, I don't mention him, but look how his Lincoln play, exactly the same.
Yeah.
Front 3 have so much freedom. Yeah, so long story short, I just think there's got to be a certain air of freedom in there. And for me, Joe, there's got to be a point where some of these players, again, stop using that as an excuse and actually do that themselves. Do it. It's good enough. You think you're good enough. I get it. You're playing for the manager. I understand that. And you still can do that. But go a bit rogue sometimes. So that's the thing that wins you games. And every top player does that. And there's a lot of them at Leeds, at England. So, there's got to be more freedom for me, I think.
I agree. I agree. In certain areas specifically, I understand a regimented defense and a regimented defensive lineup, which your six sitting in front, or if you're playing a single or double pivot, or if you're goalkeeper, all that defensive unit, I get all of that. But there's got to be freedom and expansive football when you get into the attacking third, and there has to be this desire to go, not just get a goal, but get two, get three. You got to keep pushing and keep going forward. And it's an England team that doesn't really press. It's an English team that drops off as soon as they get a goal. You know they're going to drop 10 yards straight away. It's the old school mentality. And I played for coaches years and years ago, because I'm an old man, that they used to, you'd score a goal, and as you're jogging back to the halfway line, the manager would shout at you, like, as a number 9, I'd be told to drop into midfield for the next 5. And the whole team would be told, for the next 5, hold it. Just hold it, don't lose the run or something. That was kind of stop you, going over the top and conceding straight away. But it kind of feels like Southgate's kind of stuck in that model as well. If we've got a goal, we'll drop in for 10 and we'll sit, but then you can't get out, because it's very hard to kickstart yourself and get going again once you stop. And it's like, I hear people talk about Trent and everybody else, but I wanted to ask your opinion on this. I saw Gabe put this on Twitter, Gabe the American, and it's an interesting thing, because myself and my brother talk about this a lot. You either adapt your style to suit the players you have, or you bring in the players to play the style you want. But you've got to do one or the other. You can't do a mix mash of both. It has to be one or the other. If you've got a certain style of football, you hear Southgate talking after the game about Calvin Phillips, which is a bizarre thing to bring up considering he didn't call him up. I heard somebody else, it was a footballer, I believe, could have been Roy Keane, probably was, who said, you don't always have to call up the best international players to the international setup. The international team doesn't have to be the best 22 players in England ever, or in this genre. You pick the best players to fit your system and your style. So if Calvin Phillips is the best central midfielder for your style, you pick him regardless of what anybody else thinks, because when you get that group of players together, it amplifies your style of football and allows you to play the way you want to play. And he said, in some countries, they don't always call up the best players. The manager will call up the players that he feels fit his system the best, to get the best output from this. And I feel like Southgate was doing that at the World Cup, probably, but has fallen into the other bracket now for the Euros of going, well, I've picked the players that are best performing this year, and which I would say is also arguable when you look at Cole Palmer sitting on the bench, and you've got what's the name, Jared Bowen coming on instead of him.
But Owen Gordon,
So
yeah, Joe, it's one of the best example for me is Harry Maguire, a player who is I think he's had an all right season at Manchester United. I think he's done okay there. He's played more than usual. He has had a little injury which apparently came into it, but at the end of the day, he is the perfect centre back for England in the way we play. He's so dominant aerially and in duels, and he works so well with John Stones that he has to be part of that squad for me. Similar to Calvin Phillips, if he's coming out saying we could never get someone that is, replace Calvin Phillips, then
don't replace him.
Why is it? Yeah, change how you play. And at the end of the day, looking at that, I'm looking at the amount of attacking players we have, and the amount of good midfielders we have, Cody Mainu, Wharton, who haven't had a single minute, who are more than capable of going in that role, working with a midfield to dominate a game. You shouldn't have to rely on a 6 to dominate a game. That's not something that should happen. If you don't have that thing, you have to realise that, look, Calvin Phillips has not been playing well for 2 years. He's had 2 years to potentially adjust to how we play based on Calvin Phillips' form. That's crazy. You can't do that. You have so much talent in there that you need to be aware at all times that you might have to change the way you play. And Declan Rice playing that role is fine. He was bad the second half against Denmark. He was. But in the first game, he was really good in that role. The issue wasn't in the 6. The issue was in front of the 6. The movement wasn't on. The players didn't understand where they were meant to go. And you can tell by body language, they're going like that. They're pointing to everyone else but themselves. Yeah. We've seen that at Leeds at times this year. No players taking responsibility. They don't know what they're doing. As an England manager, you have to have a way you play, but then based on that, you have to get the players you need. If the player, it is tough for Carwin because he has had a really bad 2 years. So it's probably a stretch to say he should have been called up. I understand that. But the players you've called up then have to have a role. or a position. If they're coming just to sit on the bench and not get a single minute in the group stage,
what's the point?
Would Calvin have potentially got more minutes? If you're naming him, that's a conversation. Yeah, there's so much talent there, Joe, that you simply cannot rely on a Calvin Phillips to be the one. You cannot. That's not good, is it? But then even Calvin reading that going, so it's my fault. Like
it's my fault that you're underperforming with the talent that you've got.
Why are you bringing me into this? It's crazy, mate. It's nuts.
We will talk about Leeds, but there was one last piece that was said. It was, again, the Irish panel on RTE over here said, I think it was Kevin Doyle said it, former Reading striker, who said it. If you're a country looking at Germany right now, you're terrified going into your next game against them. You will be afraid to get them in the knockouts. You'd be like, that's a country to avoid. Same with Spain. I want to avoid them at all costs until the final if we can. If you're looking at England right now, there's no fear facing them. That's not a great Danish side. And they looked really good against England.
They moved the ball better than we did.
Yeah, they did. They're very good. Second half specifically, very, very good. Yeah.
How crazy is that? That doesn't make sense. What? It's not the players. The players are respectfully good pros, obviously, a lot of them in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But the England players in there should be moving the ball better than the Danish side. What's going on there? You know what I mean? Why is that happening? It's not right, is it?
Yeah. It's mad. I don't know. We won't fix the England problem for you guys, but there you go. Maybe Silgate's got enough abuse in the media over there to sort it out for the last game. He's got nothing to lose going to the last game. You'd imagine just take the leash off and let them go and see what happens.
Surely.
You've got nothing to lose.
No.
We will get Leeds stuff. So news that's happened this week. Rob Price is off, so he's gone to Derby County as the head of sports science over there after 6 years at Leeds. Any thoughts on that? Look.
I think a lot of this is going to be interesting. I talked about when Red Bull got their investment, obviously, about their sports science side of it. I think there'll be an angle that they might bring one of their guys in. I think I mentioned the training facility and how I think they can develop like Leeds United performance facility. It might be named in a few years. I think this is a step in that direction. They have very good people in the sports science department at the top of the range in F1, snowboarding, all these sports. So there'll be an angle there for sure for me. But yeah, Rob Price, people say what they want about him. He's a very respected person in the game. He just is. You know, I can tell you that from speaking to someone at uni who worked in the FA. Rob Price is very well known. He's a good guy. He's known. He's respected very highly. Whether you think he's the problem for other injuries, I mean, that's wild. I can't lie. But very well respected. Let's just say that. And the angle now for me is I'd keep an eye on the replacement. I've got a feeling it might be someone that comes from that Red Bull training side of it, which is interesting to me and exciting. But yeah.
Between the 49ers side of things and their sports science they have with the NFL, which is pretty big as well, and the Red Bull, you would imagine you're going to get the best of both worlds there. It's one of the positive parts about the Red Bull partnership is the fact that outside of the world domination and stripping you of your history, outside of all of that, the sports science division is fantastic. And again, you mentioned the F1 stuff, but all of their sports they're involved in, they are elite in every single sport that they're involved in. So, you know, it's if you can tap into that, and that's that scouting network that they have as well, and the scouting system that they've got in place, which is second to none. Like it's a fantastic system as well. You're going to look at clubs like Manchester United who will dive into Radcliffe's Ineos partnerships and look at what they've done with the cycling over there with his Ineos team as well, and they'll dip into that. It'd be nice to see Leeds dip into the Red Bull and see what they can get. But I think you're right. I think it's very obviously looking like it'd be a Red Bull appointment for that role, but how they position that and communicate that will be interesting. It'll be a case of this guy has been appointed, and you're like, great, and then you look into his history and it's Red Bull. But they might not say a Red Bull person, but
there is
you never know.
It's interesting the way football's going, because football is usually always been quite a tight, close community. They never really learn from other sports, football, and I think that's held it back in certain terms. You know, the recovery and the longevity of athletes in other sports is much longer. Like, look at basketball, you know, very physical, but they're playing till 40, 45. Someone look at LeBron, he's still going at 40 odd years old. So there's such a, you know, football really, they're done, whatever the word is, by 30, but they're not really. When that's extending now, and this part of it, I know this might not seem it, but for me, Joe, this part of it, this science part of it is huge. If we can get someone in who has the expertise from other sports and brings that into football, the technology and all that stuff, you can extend the player's career by 4 or 5 years at the top level. It genuinely is something now that you look at all the analytical side of it as well. That's quite new in Premier League or in English football it is. We're very stubborn. Look at America, they had that in 20 years ago. We've only really got it in the last 10, 15 years at that level. So, yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting. We will see that the CV of the guy will be potentially, or maybe it's even they'll bring a guy in with the expertise who hasn't worked in that thing, so they can mold him around their sports science, maybe something like that. But yeah, this is it weird way that I'm excited? I'm just a nerd for all that sports science stuff. So for me, it's cool. I like it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah. Personally, I've always had respect for Rob Price, mate. He's a lot on his plate with Leeds, and especially the Bielsa team. Let's be real, their training regime is crazy. Yeah, that's had some longevity on some players. Let's just say that in terms of injuries. So it'll be interesting. The appointment, it'll kind of show the direction for me. But I'm always interested to see how the training side of it. That's like you said, that's something Red Bull that excites me. That sports science side of it. So I'm excited.
Well, you and me have a coaching background. You have an analytical background as well. So, we're naturally drawn to like, what's going on behind the curtain? Let me see what's going on behind there. I want to know how you do that. So yeah, we're naturally drawn to that kind of stuff, but it's interesting. Yeah, I did see the takes on like Rob Price is the problem with the Leeds United injuries. I think it's very important to point out that fitness coaches are probably more responsible for injuries than a sports scientist whose usual job is diet and nutrition and making sure that the players are okay when they are injured and getting them back on the pitch after they've become injured, as opposed to he's not going after them with a scalpel on the pitch trying to slice holes in their legs. It's important to point out that it's
at the end of the day, the manager is the one who decides when the player's back. The medical team will say, look,
and the workload.
We recommend recovery needs 2 or 3 more weeks. Daniel Farke might go, I respect that, but I need him now. And the medical team can't go, no. They'll go, all right, whatever. I've warned you. And Daniel Farke has pushed players forward. He has, because there's been times where we've needed to do that.
But Georgie, we've clearly saw that with Georgie. Joe Rodon's playing with an injury as well during the season. Somerville's had injuries and played through them. So there's been plenty of opportunities this year where Leeds could have rested players to get them back to 100% and haven't done because the manager wants them on the park. And you're guaranteed that the medical advice from Rob Price is not that they should play through an injury or take a cortisone injection. It'll be he could probably do it a couple more weeks out. But you saw Jose Mourinho when he did the famous fallout with their head physio at Chelsea, and like she was overstepping in his mind because he wanted the players on the park, and she was like, well, they're not. You can't leave a player there. You've got to get them off the pitch and you've got to look after them the right way. So I do think some people draw a line between, well, you're the head of fitness and these players aren't fit, so you're the problem, when I think it's more nuanced than that. And it's very clearly players get injured, the recovery is looked after by these guys, but obviously the sports scientists obviously have a part to play in the workload in terms of managing that and telling Farke when they should dial it up and dial it down, their measurements and their metrics for the preseason coming into the year, and their diet and nutrition throughout the whole season, and what they do when they're not in the club. So their plans and programs when they're away from the club. But the coaches that are the bulk of the responsibility for the players' workload. Yeah, science nutritionists and the physios will give them recommendations based on that. But ultimately, as you said, the manager will make that call. And and I've done it as well. I've told physios, I need the guy back on the pitch the weekend. So what do we do to get him back on the pitch by the weekend? Do you know what I mean? And they're like, well, he probably shouldn't be on the pitch the weekend. I was like, yeah, but can he play? I was like, well, yeah, he can, but he's not 100%. It's like, Grant, how long can he play for? I need him on the park. And managers and coaches are selfish. Like, we've got a job as well. And Farke is very aware that if Leeds didn't get promoted, he could be at risk and didn't want that. So get him back on the park. And it happens everywhere. But it was an interesting take from a couple of people. All right, I thought. Yeah. I'm not sure that's exactly what you think it is, or exactly 100% right. It might have a part to play in it, but he's not 100%.
Maybe they're medical experts, Joe. Who knows? You never know.
And we're not. Yeah, it's very possibly true, and we'll find out in about an hour. The other thing that happened this week, Mark Roca is off, so the exits are starting to happen. Things are starting to pick up. We've seen lots of stories around Wober return, Roca exiting Jack Harrison, but Roca is the one that's popped up for us this week. Leeds will receive less than £5 million for him, is the rumoured fee. It isn't confirmed, but that is the rumoured fee, which is obviously an awful lot less than the 10 million that Leeds paid for him. But the interesting piece that's been around this is, apparently, according to the reports in Spain and from what Adam Pope has dug up today as well, is this won't cause Leeds an issue with PSR, and Leeds won't lodge a loss on the player due to how the deal was structured with Bayern in the first place. Now, I'm speculating. I only assume that means Leeds paid a fee up front of maybe 4 or 5 million up front, and then the rest was spaced over 4 years, which means after 2 years, Leeds have less than 5 million left to pay on the player. Therefore, if he goes for 5 or slightly less, Leeds technically don't owe any money versus the payments they paid for the player. They break even or a small profit. and they'll get his very large Premier League wages off their books, which is a huge piece towards that PSR problem, that could be popping up before the end of the window. So these could relieve a lot of the issues before the 30th. To be interesting to see. But what's your take on the Roca exit?
Yeah, I think as a player, I think alone or quite alone. I like him as a player. I do. I think he is very systemized, if that makes sense. Though he only fits certain systems for me. He's that type of player. Spain is a good league for him as a 6. It works for him. Expansive football works for him because he's got a really good long pass on him. Really good at dictating that. But yeah, he was never dropping to the Championship. He came from Bayern Munich. Always around that Spain squad. He was never dropping to the Championship, was he? So, but from that perspective, I'm just glad that again we're getting them gone. I remember this time last year, we didn't even have an ownership. We didn't even have a manager. We had no idea of who was staying. Now it's very clear that these players are going, and we're getting the fee for them. Good, we're getting them. I don't know what his wages are, Joe, but I imagine they'd be high from Bayern Munich. Yeah. Getting that off the books.
Paddy was rumoured to be on about 100 grand a week on the Premier League side of the scale before his reduction. So you would assume Roca's in and around that as well as Spanish international coming from Bayern.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of money. Yeah, honestly, I never disliked Roca. I think he got. Yeah, I don't think this Jesse Marsh system is completely the
it wasn't
one that would suit him.
He was a strange one, yeah.
Well, a good player under Bielsa, maybe. You know what I mean? In that 6, some runners around him, pinging the balls out to the wingers. He'd love that, but
not like this, though.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, no. What's
no wingers to pass it?
Yeah, what's he meant to do? But I always liked him. Yeah, he'll have a good career in Spain. Will Roca? He'll do well for himself. But yeah, I'm just glad. Honestly, Joe, I'm just glad we're getting these guys gone in the most respectful way possible. We don't need them here. They don't want to be here.
Get gone. Yeah, just get them gone. If they're not going to be here, move them on quick. Goodbye, the other one that's popped up is it's been confirmed tonight by Fabrizio Romano. Jack Harrison will go to Everton and confirmed on a second loan with them. No fee involved. There'll be no loan fee in this. But again, it has been said that the 100% of his wages being picked up by Everton is a huge burden released from Leeds' shoulders again with the PSR deadline approaching. So both of those there. Jack, I'm very unemotional about Jack Harrison. I don't have an emotional attachment to Jack Harrison. Even when he played for Leeds, I was never that fond of him. So from that perspective, I kind of look at it and go, I think Jack Harrison views football as a transactional sport.
Yeah.
I don't think he has any allegiances to any main clubs, and he very much looks at it as just playing as high as he can for as long as he can, because Everton's not an ambitious move, but it's fine. It gets him a good wage. He makes a good living off it, but he never ever strikes me as a player with any of the clubs that he's really a passion merchant. That's very much like, this is a job and I'll do my job and go home at the end of the day. And that's as much as I care about it.
He's very serviceable. What the word? Serviceable is not the word. Winger, isn't it? No matter where he goes, like he'll be there. He'll never cause a storm. He'll do his thing. He'll have some good moments in games or in games where he turns up and he's actually ridiculous, but they're very rare, aren't they? Yeah.
When he turns up.
Yeah, you have certain players like that who, like when Rafinha came, instantly you felt he loved it. He fought for everything. But it's kind of like Jack Harrison, and this is their personality. They've got to where they are because of this, so it works for them. But I think as a fan base, Leeds United, we like to be connected to players. Sinistero was another one we didn't. He never really showed emotion when he played. Jack Harrison was similar as well. He was always quite calm, and that's good for him. But as a fan base, you look at the way Jorginho Ruta plays, with a bit of emotion, and we like that. Rafinha did that, even Rodon, we love him because he shows that emotion. And I think Jack never really did, so he never really got that pure love that he maybe should have had at times under Bielsa, where he was really good in the Premier League, maybe the first season. And that is part of it for me. Like, look, they're all people, they all have their own personalities, and that's great. But Leeds United as a club likes those guys who have a little bit of edge, don't they? So I feel like, for the most part, Leeds fans will be all right with him going because of that. Yeah. Whereas if like a Rutter went or something like that, it's more of but the way he plays and stuff like that. I guess Somerville as well is a bit similar in that. Like, he does show a bit of emotion at times, but he's very calm and collected and stuff. But the reason why people like Dan James this year is because he showed that more passionate side, celebrating and stuff. And we like that. It's not passion merchant. It's not we want to play that. It's just passionate. We want to play who shows that when they play. Yeah, and it's part of our identity, isn't it? Really. So. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'd agree. I actually, very good way of describing this in a Sinistero situation, because again, never really. I never really felt like he was ours anyway when he went. It's like, well, you weren't really here long enough and you didn't really do a whole lot. And yes, you scored some goals, but you didn't play a huge amount and you're always injured. So whatever, kind of whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't like the way he left, but whatever. But speaking about Sinister, actually, just we didn't discuss this, but Tyler Adams doesn't care about how Leeds fans feel about him. Do you care about Tyler Adams?
Not particularly. So, I'll tell you a story, Joe, about. So I don't want to, you know, I don't know him as a person, and I won't judge him, but I'll judge what I saw. So his first game last season against Cardiff, when he was still officially a player but injured, obviously, I was sat right in front of the away fans, right near the pitch, and you know the lap at the end where they were clapping after the game. He went up to Archie Gray. He was just walking normally, and the second the camera came near him, he looked at the camera twice, grabbed him by the arm, and started speaking to him. He then looked at the camera afterwards as well, and I said to my mate who I sat with, Adam, and I went, I didn't like that. And I'm not, honestly, I don't have an agenda. I saw it, and from that moment, I don't know Adam as a person, but he looked at the camera 3 times and he knew the camera was there. You know, with the picture of the arm around Archie talking to him, always helping him. Maybe he was, but he knew when to do it. Let's just say that. He knew where the camera was and he kept looking at it to make sure it was on him. I didn't like that. I really didn't. And I don't know him as a person, but that isn't good. You know, if you're a genuine person and you believe in the player that you're talking to, do it for good reasons. Don't look at the camera. And it was literally like that. Yeah.
Moment.
I didn't like it. I saw it and I went, nah, I don't like that. And from that moment, I was like, he's not here. He's not doing this for the right reasons. And we found out that he wanted to leave. So
spectacularly suing the club to go. What a way to go. So it was his loan exit had expired. Same as Sinister's had expired. So he couldn't go on loan. So they forced it. They got it through. And Leeds went. And Nathan Kinnear's way of looking was just go. Get gone. We don't want you here.
I don't, Joe, it annoys me. This is the thing. I get it. Like, footballers want the most money. They want to play in the Premier League. But is it really that bad to... What's the point in development anymore? Do you know what I mean? And I get it. Like, the raw fan, he wants to play in Premier League, most wages. I get that. But you have to look at it from a development perspective. Somerville is in a better position now, for me, in terms of the clubs wanting him, than he would have been if he'd have left at the start of the summer last year.
Correct.
He might have got a decent, and Everton were linked, but now he's linked with Liverpool, Chelsea, Brighton,
Dortmund.
Because he's took 1 season in the Championship and become the main man and stepped up to that plate. Now the world is his oyster. And people need to realise that you can get the Premier League wages, you can get all that, but maybe just taking time to step back and understand the situation before you rush to that is the best decision. Because what would he have done if he'd have gone to the Premier? He might have played 10, 15 games a season. He's had 40-odd games and he's got, 25, 30 goal involvements this season. The Championship is a good league for developing young players. It's a good audience. People watch it. The Premier League watch it. Now, teams in Germany watch, look at Nathan Teller, who went to Bayer Leverkusen from the Championship and has won the league there. It's a good league. So any player that is... Yeah, exactly. That's it. Any player that is in a rush to go as quick as possible, just consider that actually you can develop a lot in the Championship, and a lot of teams are watching. So I hate that whole, I get it, they want to play for the national side, and if their national side are telling them, if you're in a Championship, I'm not going to play, I understand that, obviously, because you want to play for the national side, but come on, you don't have to rush, especially when you're 22, 23, one extra year, and that's it with Roca as well. One more year in the Championship for me would be so good for him, because I genuinely believe this year we're going to get a more defined player than last year. So, no, I hate the rushing. I hate it. It annoys me. It really does.
I get this comment quite frequently from, I won't say a lot of people, individuals will make the comment about, and somebody today said, I need to leave Max Wober alone because I'd have done the same thing as him without a 50% wage cut. If I'd been offered a 50% wage cut, I'll be very, very clear. Because I can say this now. I've been made redundant this week and I would have stayed for a wage cut. All right. So that's personally, I actually offered the job back to try and stay on. I would take a pay cut. Right. So that's the first part. Second part of it is, and this is where the big argument is, we are people who have day-to-day jobs. Anyone who's commented on my videos has a day-to-day job. We're normal people. We all go out, we all work, we all have jobs. These are professional footballers earning humongous money. Diego Rente's wages at Leeds is £4.5 million a year. Him taking a 50% pay cut is 2.5 million. It's still 2 million, 2.3 million a year, which is still a significant amount of money. Feeling sorry for Max Wober getting a bit of stick because he was going to have to take a pay cut and went off to Germany. You're talking about the difference between someone being mega rich and very rich. And that's where they are. Like, these guys are not like they were 50 years ago, where, well, I can't afford to take a pay cut because then I lose money and I won't have any money. It's a short career. I need loads of money. These guys are millionaires already. So let's not feel sorry for them about a pay cut. That is the one thing that bugs me of going, well, you wouldn't take a 50% pay cut. Yeah, I would. And also 50% of his wages is still probably 2.5 million a year. How many people would bite your hand off for 2.5 million a year every year for the next 4 years, guaranteed? You would.
Yes.
So I don't buy that excuse. I don't buy the action of, well, you should leave him alone because blah blah blah. You don't, because it's a pay cut. Why should he take a pay cut? The national side argument, very different argument completely. Wober going to Germany because he wanted to get in the Euro squad, that's a different conversation. It's a different argument. But if you're making it about finances, he is still a very wealthy man, even in the Championship, as all of these players that stayed with us last year will still be next year. Mm-hmm. So that's, for me, that's the caveat on that one. It's a bugbear of mine, and I just think you're talking a different level of earnings here compared to what normal people earn. It's not comparable.
Exactly, Jay. I agree. And on that as well, it's like, you look at Aronson and the way he dealt with it and the way he left so fast and made that decision that I need to play at the top level. I need to get in the USA squad.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. Like, it's hard because it was an international year, and they all had internationals. Maybe but this year now there's no internationals at the end of this summer.
Like 2 years.
So you have a year of development. You have a year to, if you want them top wages, take a little reduction this year, and then maybe next year you'll get off the double what you'd be on this year anyway. So you're almost going back to go 2 steps, one step back, 2 steps forward. Yeah. There's no, and this is it. I get it. I do. You want to play in the Premier League, you want to play in the top leagues. I understand that, but you can still do that by taking the year detour and developing your game. So when you get there, you're instantly a starter. You're instantly one of the best players. You're instantly more paid because you're more valuable to the side, as opposed to going there, sitting on the bench for 2 years, then maybe getting in the team in the 3rd year. You can take a year out in the Championship and be ready, like Somerville is now, more ready anyway than he was last year, to be that player. And the opposite is Nonto. When he made that problem about it at the start of the season, that affected his entire season. If he didn't make that problem, he could have had an unbelievable season in the Championship. Of course he could. And he could have been touted for going for 40 million by the top teams. But there isn't that want anymore for him because he didn't have a great season. So you have to... Financial is everything, obviously, but... Well, no, that's like, isn't everything. It's part of it. You have to understand, and this anyone that's, no one will be watching probably that's professional football, but anyone that's thinking of that side of it, your career is short, but 9 months, 1 season can define the rest of your career. Don't make the top decision quickly. Make the right one for you and your development. And if you do that, for me, the rewards will come. It might be a year later, but you'll be better suited when it comes, in my opinion. So I don't know. Yeah.
I look at Guy Crush as the example. He stayed the extra year in the Championship, and he went to, I think it's Sporting Lisbon, isn't he? Sporting Lisbon. Yeah.
And now he's
and he's had an incredible season. They're talking he's worth 70 million now, and he could get a top team in the Premier League. His options were like Leicester, Leeds, Burnley, Everton.
Yeah.
Now they're Liverpool, Newcastle, Manchester United, Chelsea. That's exactly. I mean, that's that, and then that's because he decided, I'll take the extra year, I'll go somewhere else, I'll make my name, and I'll come back. I'll take that extra, and I'll come back a much bigger player, and much bigger wages, and much bigger salary, and everything else that goes along with it. So, it's sometimes the grab for instant cash can be detrimental. Like I was talking to one of my colleagues, my old former bosses, who still works in the company that I work at, and when I was giving him my bad news this week about the redundancy, he said to me, "I know you want to work, and you don't want to be out of work, but don't take a job at McDonald's straight away. Take a breath." And I said, well, I'll do whatever I have to do to pay my bills because I'll need to pay bills. Yeah. And his exact words were, don't take the short-term jump into something that's going to detrimentally impact your longer-term career. Because if you go to McDonald's or a Costa Coffee or something just to pay the bills at the end of the month and you don't really care and it's a job that means to an end, there's nothing wrong with that. Companies in the industry you're in right now, when you try and get back into it, ask, well, why did you do that? And they look at your CV and go, well, there's a reason why you did that. It's a performance issue, or it's a personality issue, or an attitude problem that you've ended up there and not where you were. So Don't do that. And it's the same with footballers. Like, don't take the obvious jump just for the sake of it. Don't jump to an Everton in the Premier League just because it's a Premier League club, because you might end up stuck there. Look at Jack Harrison. He's stuck with Everton. He could have had a banger of a year in the Championship for Leeds last year, and he could be the one that Liverpool are looking at, because Newcastle looked at him before. Could be heading there, but nope, he's heading back to Everton on loan for another season of probably relative mediocrity in the Premier League.
Jack Grealish and Calvin Phillips. Jack Grealish stayed much longer at Villa. They got relegated with him. Everyone's like, he's leaving. Stayed another year. Got to move to City.
Yeah.
Like, Calvin Phillips stayed another year. Remember when we didn't get promoted the first year? Everyone was saying, oh, he's leaving. He could go to Sheffield United. They went, no, I'll stay. Got us promoted. Had 2 seasons. Got a City move. There's no rush. There really isn't. I know it didn't work out for him, but again, that's many other things to talk about. But there's no rush, Joe, for me. And look, it's not always it might be the right option to take the early move if you are genuinely good enough. But most players these days are not ready. Look at the Archie situation. He doesn't need to go anywhere. He's playing so much football. He's a key part of this side. He can go to Liverpool in 2 or 3 years and he'd be a much better player. Like, I've seen Liverpool link. That's the only reason I mentioned Liverpool. But you know what I mean? Like, he will always have them options because of how good he is. You don't need to go when you're 18. Go when you're 20 when you're actually fully ready and you've developed and played 80 odd more games in 2 seasons. I hate rush decisions. You've got to, obviously financial thing as well. It helps them. They don't have to make a rush decision. If any of us and we have to make a rush decision, we need money to pay rent. They don't. They can take time to understand these decisions, and that's the part of it for me.
Yeah. So on the Max Wober situation, there's a lot of talk about his return. He spoke himself during the week about the situation. He said that it's radio silence. He has spoken to Leeds. He said he did speak to Leeds, and Leeds have told him to focus on the Euros, and they'll talk to him when the Euros are over. Part of me thinks that's go play the game, play really, really well. Then we'll sell you when you get back. Go make your name for yourself in the Euros, which, not a great start. But where do you sit on him coming back? Go ahead.
Farke must be fuming. I was just going to say, Joe. Like, from what we believe he said to him last year about, can you be my captain? Yeah, of course. Did all the shirt stuff. Promised Farke that he'll be part of this side and be a captain to then go. I think Farke saw in Aronson a player that he'd obviously not had that conversation with him. He'd left before. Aronson wanted to get out quick. Farke's obviously spoken to him. They've had a conversation. Aronson's agreed to stay. So Aronson has that chance that Wober had. Wober had it. He blew it with Farke. Might be wrong, but I don't think Farke will accept that. Maybe if we really need to keep him because of financials and we can't really afford a centre-back, then it's another discussion. But right now, I think Farke wants him to play well at the Euros so he can get a move. I honestly don't see him staying. I just don't think the manager will allow it. I think he wants him gone. I think he's had his chance.
Exactly. I mean, Graham Smith gave the detail because everyone asked what the detail is, and we've talked about it quite a lot over the last 12 months about, he spoke to Farke, he said he wanted to stay, and then people are like, well, did he really say that? Did that really happen? When did that happen? Where's the proof? Blah, blah, blah. Graham Smith's piece this week, on Inside LNO podcast, it's a really good show, actually. He was talking about it, and he said that Wober did meet with Farke. They did have a discussion, and Max Wober captained Leeds, albeit a young Leeds side, against and then left after he told Farke. And the fact that, and as Graham Smith says, the fact that Farke put the armband on him in the first place, even for Barnsley, he showed him that level of respect that then Wober didn't show him, and off he went. I'm ignoring the Euros right now because everyone's talking about the game against the Euros. He's probably not worth anything now. He's had a very, very strong season in Germany in a very average Gladbach side. They've talked an awful about his strengths as a leader in that team that don't have those characteristics in the team when he's not there. There will be interest in Wober versus the remainder of the other players like Llorente's him and Han a bit move. It'd be peanuts. Christensen's probably got to come back because really bad loan.
Yeah.
Wober's not in that situation. He's had a good spell in Gladbach, and there will be some interest regardless of what happens in the Euros. Whoever's watching Wober or is interested in Wober, and there is said to be some interest in him, they're not going to judge him on that one match. They're going to have looked at him over an entire season. Yeah. Against Mbappe. Yeah, I know. Well, it wasn't great against Mbappe. Well, you're on the pitch. That's a start, So, but Graham Smith did say that his return to Leeds won't be as simple as Aronson's because, as you said, Aronson didn't have a conversation with Farke. He was gone before Farke came in. Wober did have that conversation, and he said that it'll be tougher to win the fans over because of the situations that Wober walked himself into here, and that if he does come back to Leeds, he feels that the bridges are probably burned here. What's your feeling on the situation?
I agree on the fact that, yeah, it will be a lot tougher. He was given that chance. It's now public knowledge that he turned down that chance by telling Farke that he wants to stay and he wants to be part of the side and be the captain. And then going, but from a fan perspective, I think it's the same for most. I think it's the fact that if he did stay and started playing well, we'd not forgive, but be like, whatever, right? You're playing well for us now. That's all we need. We need to go back to the Premier League. We're doing that by you playing well. You're a good player on his side. He would be ridiculous in the Championship. He's had a good season in the Bundesliga. He'd be very good at the Championship. So I get and I'm like this with any player, honestly, Joe. Like even the Nonto situation, still annoyed that he did that. That really annoyed me. Just the fact that he made that decision when he didn't have to. I get the people around him, but at the end of the day, he has to go, no, I want to play. Let me play. Let me get on with my job. Yeah. Wober is in that same bracket. He didn't refuse to play, but he left having told Farke that I'll stay. I don't like winning games. It's whatever, isn't it? You want to win games. Look, whether he'll be liked, it doesn't matter. He'll be supported because that's what we do as Leeds fans. We'll support him anyway. If he does a good tackle, we'll cheer. And that's it for me. It's about the club, Joe. It's about what's best for us going forward. Wober's a good centre-back and will be very good at the Championship. If he stays and he can convince Farke that he apologises to Farke and tells him, look, I didn't know the situation at the time. I was worried about my place in the Austrian side. Yeah, I guess you can understand that perspective. But right now, if that is the case, like Aronson, whether it's PR or nothing, he needs to come out, apologise, say he's committed and get on with it. And we'll make our own decision. We're not a silly fan base. Well, we can be sometimes, but we get it. He'll never be loved. He won't, but he can make up for the mistakes he's made by playing well, I think.
Yeah. I've said it before, anyone who puts a Leeds shirt on, I'll get behind. I might not sing your name for quite a while. You've got to earn that respect back. And that will take him longer than it will take Aronson because, as we said last week on the podcast, Aronson seems to make his decisions at the end of every season immediately. Like Leeds announced him coming from Salzburg immediately after the end of that season. He made his decision to go to Union Berlin immediately after Leeds' final game. So he seems to get his ducks in a row rapidly and go, what's the next thing? I'm going to make that decision and commit to it. And then he's made his decision to come back and stay at Leeds immediately after the Bundesliga season stayed. So you take him at his word there and you see, well, look, the kid obviously likes to get his summer sorted before he goes off and takes his holidays and then focus on it. Whatever. Don't like the fact that you left, but the circumstances were different. We didn't have a manager. Bertozani was still in charge. The place was a bit of a mess. You had the Copa America. Whatever. Just come back and do the work. Prove that you want to be here. Win the fans back over like Willie did. And get on with your job. Max, slightly different, but the same thing. And I would say this to everybody. I will never boo or hope a player fails in a Leeds United shirt. And the same with the Jesse Marsh situation a couple of years ago. If they do well, we do well. So we should always want them to do well. The question is whether you want them here or not, or where your moral standpoint is on things. But for me, I agree with Graham Smith. I think that it'll be a tougher bridge for Max Wober to cross. He should probably do himself a favour and stop talking in the media. I don't think it's doing him any favours. Like saying, I'll wait until July to speak to anybody. Yeah. That just comes across as arrogant and not really your choice. So you maybe don't say things because even if you're saying things in Austrian, it's getting translated. There's context missing. There's grammar changes and differences. It doesn't always come across the way you want it to. Maybe just keep your cloth clean for a little bit and just let your feet do the talking when you get a chance to do it, or leave, one or the other, whatever way it might happen. But I would imagine we'll know pretty soon. So that Austria might struggle to get out of the group, and that could be the end of the Euros for them. And then we'll see what happens with Wober. So the next couple of weeks are going to be interesting. Players are due back in a week. I think less than a week pre-season before they play the first time against Harrogate in 2 weeks. It's going to be an interesting time. I'm excited to see what happens next week. Like, are you excited for next season at a pre-season? Yeah. Where's your head at?
I'm excited, mate. Yeah, much more excited than I was last season because there's not really any up in the airs this year, is there? We've got the ownership, we've got investment from Red Bull, so there's that side as well. Yeah. I know long term that is a worry, but right now that's good for us where we are financially as well. Most of the players we think will stay. Parag's come out and said we don't need to sell loads. That's the situation. I believe they will. I don't think any will force their way out, apart from the ones that did last year. That's a worry, but we'll see what happens with that. Like at the end of the day, Joe, everything is kind of relaxed, fine. The manager's staying. He's got a lot of time to build with his squad now, and that's the key part of it. I'm happy. I can't wait. I just want the transfer window to get going, so we find out who we're bringing in. I know some people, obviously, Leeds fans, are like losing our minds over we've not signed anyone yet. Like, I don't think we'll sign anyone till after this month because of the financial fair play stuff. But I think you know more about that than me. But I'm assuming that's probably the case, right? It's about getting players out.
I think the 30th. Yeah. I think the 30th it'll be the 30th when the PSR deadline. If we don't sell anybody outside of the likes of Roca, Harrison, maybe Llorente before the 30th of June, then I think we're okay financially. I think we can all say, Grant, there was no major fire sale needed before the end of the PSR deadline. So that means that everything that has been said about things being fine is true, but we've still got a week to go on that. So 9 days, we'll wait and see what happens there. Go on.
I was just going to say, I'm just worried that in like 4 weeks we'll get like Fabrizio, Jorginho, Rutter. Oh no, please, no.
I heard someone say that Rutter could be a player that goes. And I just don't think he's the one. I don't think anyone's going to pay over 30 million for him. And I think Leeds, from a financial and PSR perspective, just can't afford to sell him for that. So it's tough. It's just stick it out, you know. And he's young enough, and he probably needs another year.
Yeah, 21.
He needs another year. He's a long way from being a rounded off footballer. He's still got things to learn. His finishing needs to get better. So what I would say to people is, if you've got an hour or so to kill when you're finished watching this, go watch the Or to Know Better podcast and go watch Larry Nance Jr. was on the show with the lads, which is a great get full stop. But they asked him about players, and he said he can't say an awful lot. He finds out about players usually 2 or 3 days before they signed for Leeds. But when they pushed him on it, he said, I'm very excited about what we're going to do this summer. And that's enough for me from a fan level, because if you watch it, you'll find out that Larry Nance is very much a football fan outside of basketball. He plays Football Manager when he's not playing basketball. He plays FIFA. He's not a American sports aficionado like most American sports people would be. He's very much a football fan outside of basketball. So it's a really interesting interview from a personal perspective to get an insight into who he is as a bloke. He comes across as a really nice fella and a really affable bloke who's very happy to talk to people. So go check it out. There's some nuggets in there as well. But from what I watched last night, again, all the noise I'm hearing, I'm a lot calmer than I was this time last season, where I was really worried what was going to happen. So go check it out. Go check it out. Lucky, anything you want to add before you wrap up?
I was just going to say, how wild was that? Like last year, we literally had no idea at any time what was going to happen. We had no clue. We couldn't sign players. We had no manager. The manager came in. Suddenly 8 players are wanting to leave. They've got these contracts, you know.
Yeah.
Even on the last day.
Brad's trying to sell on the road or use it as collateral.
Those few days were stressful. And then the EFL wouldn't approve the ownership for like 4 weeks. And we went, what is going on here? Yeah. And then on final deadline day, you got Sinisterra threatening to thingy Leeds if you don't sell him. Yeah. Honestly, mate. Yeah, so compared to last year, after the 30th, I'm looking forward to seeing what we do. I think there'll be some good recruitment in there. I'm excited.
Brilliant. Well, another 30-minute podcast that's gone 47 minutes. Massive thanks, Lucky, as always. I swore we wouldn't do more than 30, but I always enjoy talking.
Apologies.
We had this all night. Lucky, thanks very much, folks. Go check out today's news video if you want down below as well, or it's linked somewhere on the page. You can check that out, and I'll be back on Monday morning for more Leeds news. Lucky, thank you very much. See you, folks.
No worries.